Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check out these headlines. We've got a clip from Swell for you. You're going to want it. Actually, a couple clips from Swell and a very, very candid interview from Brad Garlinghouse at DC FinTech Week with so much fire in it. We're not even going to waste any more time. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on Twitter and YouTube for exclusive content. Right now, $1.43 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is up 3.1% this morning. We love hearing that. Bitcoin, 36,800 plus right now, and 1,900 plus for Ethereum. 86.1 billion plus for Tether market cap, but for how long? I don't know. You should go to the Freedom Zone and see what I've put in there today. I wouldn't touch it to the depth that we went into it in the Freedom Zone, but you're going to want to know about what we're talking about USD Tether, and the rest of the United States is saying about it now too on a congressional level. Very big news. 68 cents for XRP, ladies and gentlemen, and the market is telling us in the last 24 hours we're off by 0.4%, but we're still up over 10% on the 7-day. So let's look at the range of price very quickly because we know the technical analysts have told us to watch it. We're staying above a 66-cent range here, so it's exciting for all of us. Hopefully we continue the uptrend, and even though we see some retracements and retests, but you know what? We are ranging between 67 and 70 cents right now. I'm loving it. Let's keep it going is what I say. And you know what? I wanted to tell you about this. It's Glint. You guys know, you've heard me talk about it, but if you haven't taken advantage of it, now's the time to do it. What are you waiting for? Become your own bank. Empower yourself. The alternative to banking is right in your own hands. It's Glint Pay. Buy, save, send, and spend real gold instantly with Glint. This is an amazing product and service that they provide. You get to load up gold on your account, on your phone, on your app, and be able to spend it through a MasterCard debit card at your leisure, or just continue to save it as a hedge, however you prefer to do it. But what's really incredible is that you have the power in your hands, and you don't need a bank to do it. It's pretty remarkable. Then there's this. You can also get Glint on Link2. Private equity investment, the best in the world. Click the link below to get some today. Let's start really quickly here. It's Crypto Insight UK out there. It's Swell holding it down for all of us. Listen to what is said here about Ripple payments and how you can leverage it directly and not get hung up into technology. And by the way, unsure if you can see the video, but it directly leverages XRP. So for all the people who say it says Ripple but not XRP, this one's for you.
The best part of this is there's no tech heavy lifting. They're able to onboard to us and immediately start initiating payments using an intuitive user interface. And I'll draw a little bit of a contrast here with a lot of the licensed larger institutions that we've served today.
Okay.
And if you are an existing customer of Ripple Payments, you manage crypto in your workflow today, and you have the expertise and sophistication to do so, and this works well. But it's challenging for smaller corporates who don't have that expertise or resources to build that in-house. And now, with our latest product capabilities, Ripple Payments can be managed end-to-end by Ripple. So a customer can initiate that payment with simplicity. And that notion of simplicity, we're able to abstract all of the complexity associated with interacting or managing digital assets, or interacting with a blockchain-based solution, so that corporate customers can transact with ease, focusing on not being a crypto expert themselves, but solving their core problem. I'll draw another contrast. Larger financial institutions today have developed over many years fantastic expertise and sophistication around transaction monitoring, around ensuring that they are maintaining compliance with local standards and regulations in every jurisdiction of operation. But similarly, smaller corporates who don't have the resources and needs a partner who can help support them along in that journey. so that they can focus on what they do best, which is, quite frankly, operating and growing their business. And so we...
There you have it. Now let's take a listen to this clip as well, talking about tokenization of real estate and gold. Who doesn't love hearing this?
For instance, a company called TUG, that is one of the main electric vehicle manufacturers in Turkey, well, the main, actually the only, and they use tokenization for various use cases that you would never think about when your brain is looking at tokenizing gold or currencies with stable coins, etc. It really pushes you to a point where you can think about tokenization as a way to manage the ownership of your house. Opening the door is actually some form of a token relationship. Opening your car, securing your ownership way beyond the traditional assets that we deal with today. So, Julian, because you are today very advanced, of course, in your journey, can you tell us a little bit about the use cases that you have imagined as a company and where you see the market moving?
Yes, I think there is a number of opportunities that are often talked about in terms of securities, and I think actually property has a greater opportunity in terms of tokenization. And I think there's also those areas where transfer of value is difficult or challenging, whether that's through economic or regulation or society type challenges. The point, I'm just going to move the conversation a little bit, and you can pull me back if you want, Adrian, but I think the bigger challenge that we've got when we talk about tokenization is around both the regulatory and legal stage, so who owns those assets and what it is, but also the control function. And just a very simple example, if Apple have got 1,000 shares, I think they have one or two more. If they have 1,000 shares and I buy a share, I have 1,000th of that business. Okay, how do I know they haven't given 1,100? Okay, I have people, the exchanges, the auditors, the accountants, the lawyers, all giving me assurance that there's only 1,000 Apple assets out there. So if we tokenize this building, and I haven't had the joy of coming here, do I know it exists? Do I know it is of substance? Do I know the occupancy rate, etc.? I'm going to have to rely on a lot of experts to understand the physical asset and the provenance of that before it then gets tokenized. And I think where the use case is going to come out is where you can get that provenance absolutely nailed and done it in a very effective way. That becomes really, really interesting.
And I tell you something, he's spot on here, ladies and gentlemen. If you're hearing what he's saying, how do you tokenize something and make sure it's not fraudulent, essentially, right? That if I tokenize 1,000 shares of Apple, the company, and it's just for an arbitrary number, right? Then how do I know that all those shares are actually legitimate? How do I know that the fractionalization of a building is completely legitimate and that it's not being double sold or undersold So this is why I have said, and we're about to listen to Brad Garlinghouse now, this is why I have always said I believe that the Ripple case may go all the way to the Supreme Court. And it is because I have said, because XRP is a bridge asset and it is being introduced to complement inside of the financial system, unlike Bitcoin, right, and other assets. And I'm not saying that to be a dig on Bitcoin. It's just that Bitcoin white paper is anti-bank, anti-establishment, right? And that's okay. The libertarian in me loves that. But the reality here is that we're talking about a bridge asset to complement inside the fiat government central banking world. And if that's going to work, then you're going to have absolute legal clarity, or need absolute legal clarity, in order to define exactly what is happening to that ownership of value while it is on that bridge asset being moved from one protocol to another, one possession owner to another. There needs to be legal clarity there when the exchange happens, so there is no question, because we're talking about the money and the value of the world moving at times across the XRP ledger. So that is such a key point to me, and I have hammered it home before in years past, but it really is where we are today. Now, I'm going to play the first part of this. This entire interview is fantastic. Now, let me get us to the point where we're past the music here, because I don't want to get a copyright strike, even though the music's pretty remarkable. But nevertheless, I want to give you this. Shout out to Brad Garlinghouse and shout out to I think it's Kaylee, who's interviewing him and does a fantastic job. And they go for it from the word go, and you want every bit of it. So here it is.
For you?
Very short this time, but it's always good to be back in Washington.
You going to have to spend any time at the SEC while you're here this time?
Maybe a photo op? No, I'm kidding. No planned visits to the SEC. But I would welcome that. I mean, honestly, I think an open dialogue between industry and the SEC would be a step forward from where we are now.
Well, of course, what we're all referring to, and I think everyone in this room pretty much knows what I'm talking about, is the SEC case, which a judge ruled in your favor around XRP and whether or not it was improperly issued as a security. Are we calling that done and dusted, or are you bracing yourself for some kind of remedy or appeal process?
Great question.
Well, look, I think the SEC clearly lost on everything that matters. There is a remedy process which continues forward. There's the unknown, and I know Chair Gensler is on stage later. You should ask him if they're going to appeal. That would be great. Look, that's not a knowable thing. From my point of view, they lost on the things they care most about. But by the same token, if they move it up the appellate ladder, it becomes more amplified as a decision of consequence. And so it'll be interesting. I think there's a strategic trade-off. I'm sure there's way more lawyers in this room than I'm comfortable, that you guys know more about it than I do. But I think it's to be determined whether or not I choose to appeal. I think regardless of whether they appeal, I feel really good about it. I think it's very clear the SEC now they lost 3 times with Ripple. They lost, I know the CEO of Grayscale is on, they lost the Grayscale case. And by the way, these are federal judges saying things, I'll quote Grayscale. The judge said that the SEC was being arbitrary and capricious. I mean, this is damning language from a federal judge. I also happen to believe, as long as I'm on a roll here, look, at some point when you have you keep trying to do the same thing and you keep having the same outcome, at some point you change your approach. What I hope it would be magical if Chair Gensler got up here and said, hey, we're going to change our approach. We have lost time and time and time again, so let's step back. Apparently we haven't had it right because the judicial branch is saying we keep getting it wrong. And so it would be great to have that constructive dialogue. I would be happy to go to the SEC today.
Okay.
Actually, today would be tough, but
yeah, I know he has to get on a flight to Dubai in a couple of hours, so we'll pass the message along to Chair Gensler when he arrives. But
I would come back from Dubai here to meet with Chair Gensler.
Okay. On the record, he says this. So you mentioned that there was a win in the Ripple case and in the Grayscale case, or a loss on the other hand for the SEC. But of course, those aren't the only high-profile cases the SEC is currently pursuing. They've brought cases against Binance, against Coinbase. Does the Ripple case teach us anything about what might happen in those cases? How do you view the debate around XRP in the context of those cases?
Look, I've followed the Coinbase case a little more closely, and so maybe I can comment there a little bit more. I think that the challenge has been, and again, even if you read or listen to what the judge has said in some of the early Coinbase procedural stuff, the SEC is not trending well there. And again, if at some point you would think if you keep getting losses, you would say, okay, wait a minute, let's step back, let's reevaluate, or even better, let's be part of championing a legislative solution. Let's not go to Congress and testify and say, the laws are clear. The laws clearly could be much clearer at a minimum. And, I think what you're seeing in the Coinbase case, the world is not just a simple Howey test. And we have seen some momentum around legislative solutions. Obviously, Washington, it's hard to get things passed in Washington. In some ways, that's a good thing. In some ways, that's bad. But I'm hopeful that in 2024, we do see some legislative momentum that actually does provide that clarity. And it would be a magical thing if the SEC were part of that, working constructively with the industry to find that right path.
Well, you say you're hopeful that something happens legislatively, but ultimately the way things are going right now, do you think more clarity is likely to come from Congress, or is it just going to continue to come from the courts and the judicial branch?
And then we do
legislatively, but ultimately the way things are going right now, do you think more clarity is likely to come from Congress, or is it just going to continue to come from the courts and the judicial branch?
I think that's a question for Chair Gensler. I mean, right now he has taken an approach of your regulation through enforcement. That is not in my judgment, constructive way to regulate. Look, one of the things is most frustrating about this. I mean, Ripple spent well over $150 million defending that case. There is no recourse. So, the case was brought by Bill Hinman and Jay Clayton. Bill Hinman and Jay Clayton, Jay Clayton left office the next day.
Right.
It just feels a little bit like this was not there's just no recourse to the SEC. There's no negative outcome for anyone. And I think it's really, really confusing to me when Bill Hinman got up to the world in 2018 and said, ETH is not a security. And now we know from the litigation with Ripple that the SEC's general counsel even said, this is going to make things less clear. This isn't following the Howey test. So, it feels a little bit, and I think there should be, some call to accountability and even an investigative work. Like, why would we take an approach of putting Ripple on the defense if we got to spend $150 million to show that the law actually doesn't say what they're saying, and then in another case say, okay, we think this one's clear. Like, the government should not be picking winners and losers.
So as we talk about this litigation, do you think if there is an appeal in your case or in one of the other cases we've talked about, that ultimately this ends up with the Supreme Court, that this goes all the way to the top?
Listen.
I think that definitely could happen. I mean, certainly, we've said this publicly, we are in it till the end.
So you'd take it to SCOTUS?
100%. By the way, again, there's a lot of lawyers in this room. That is a good thing. I mean, the current Supreme Court, we'd love to see the Vegas odds on how that would go.
Listen, I'd love to. This is what I've been saying for a long time. I really believe that's how important this technology, this value protocol, and the asset XRP and Ripple, which I believe could become the Fed 2.0, can really, really be. And maybe it splits off, right? Maybe Ripple goes off to be like an IBM, but in the blockchain infrastructure world, right? Maybe there's parts of that go off to be, versions of the Fed and Swift, like RippleNet, right? But obviously a much better version that can do way more, right? But the fact that this could go all the way and that look at the face of confidence here he has. I feel like in order to have legal clarity, complete legal clarity to move all the money, as Evan Schwartz has said, you may need to go to the biggest final resting place that law of the land is decided, which is the Supreme Court. Now, I'm going to stop that right there so it doesn't get too long, but make sure you tune in for part 2 because Brad is just getting heated up, and it is remarkable. Every second of this is fantastic. Now, before we go, I do want to show you this too. It's the Freedom Zone, ladies and gentlemen, and we're about to dive into it here, and we're going to talk today about that country that has a red flag and what it could really be tied to, and about how this crypto winter may not be over until it is all revealed, and a new U.S. bill from Congress that could help get it done. And I tell you something, I mean this, and this new bill could really prove to all of us whether we still have our country we believe in or not. I'll see all of you in the Freedom Zone. Not financial advice from me or anyone else.